I think you were the one who had said in Pragg you see young Vishy, and I think right now he's made it to the candidates and he was finished second at the World Cup.
For him, because I believe for quite some time his potential was much higher than what he was showing. I mean, it is clear that he's much stronger and has much more potential. Yeah, and now, okay, for the first time I saw, I mean, in the World Cup, how he should play, because I think it is his level. He's definitely top 10 player already.
So some very high praise there from Vladimir Kramnik, former world champion and a guy who has worked with Pragg in the past and other young Indian players as they've developed over these previous years. Now Praggnanandhaa really is the man of the moment right now, apart from Magnus Carlsen himself. So he reached the World Cup final. Now he just had an incredible event at this Team Championships event. It was a World Rapid Team Championships thing. And this is one of the games from that tournament. Pragg was playing black, and his opponent is a guy that's been over 2700. So a former Super GM, you could say. You know, when you break 2700, you're kind of in that Super GM bracket. So Evgeny Najer, right? Strong Russian GM, been around on the circuit for years, very experienced, and yet Pragg in this game takes a level position, and within 2 moves he's got his opponent resigning. So let's check this one out. Pragg with black. I can't flip the board unfortunately with the view I've got here, so we'll look at it from the white view. So e4, e5 on the board and a Roy Lopez. a6 played, the bishop drops back, and now Pragg is dabbling with these side systems. So the knight developing is the main move. Pragg goes for bishop to c5, and he's soon going to put his knight here. I covered another one of his games recently where he left the bishop home and started with this knight move. And it's really not such a bad system, but it has some risk. Because watch now how white takes the centre. You know, putting the bishop here, very provocative. We get takes, pawn recaptures, Pragg gives the check, bishop blocks, look at this big white centre. And if you play really casually, you know, castles, you're already getting blown off the board with d5. So you have to be active. Pragg goes d5, and at first view, it looks like e5 should be nice for white. Set up a nice attacking platform, drop back the bishop, start going for some nasty stuff. But what black can do here is actually pressure this knight, which supports the centre, and then start playing for f6 to undermine, bring the pieces to life. It's okay for black. So we didn't see e5, we see takes on d5, Pragg takes with the queen, more provocative play, the knight develops with tempo, but now he gives the check, the queen blocks, and he castles the king. Now he's not afraid of this captures here, he's going to retake with the bishop, and although it looks like you're running into a fork, well, you can't do it just yet. The knight covers, and if you do this with the bishop, well, you don't recapture with the knight, you take with the pawn. How do we assess this one? Well, yes, black's pawn structure is a bit shattered, but white's got the isolated pawn, and when pieces are coming off the board, it's not what you want with an IQP. So that's why we now see castles simply played. Here white wants to keep pieces on the board. Now why doesn't Pragg take here? Go for this pawn structure. Well, yes, you've now left white with 3 pawn islands versus 2, but these are pretty big, monstrous pawns, taking a lot of squares. You know, even though they're hanging pawns, they're a bit too powerful. Better for white. So no takes on e3, queen d6 played, sidestepping, preparing to develop the bishop, and now we see rook a d1, lending some defense here, and knight b4. Classic remaneuver when you're playing against the IQP, looking to blockade that pawn. But what does white do? More classic play, land a knight on the outpost. When you've got the IQP, it gives you good outposts for the pieces, the minor pieces, and you get open files for the rooks to play with. And this is why, if you've got the IQP, you don't want your pieces coming off the board, you want to attack. So the knight drops back into d5, hits the queen. We don't see piece exchanges. Remember, it's not what we want as white. So the queen sidesteps. We're happy with takes here. Helps our pawn structure. So Pragg goes c6, the bishop drops back to b3, h6 played, rook fe1, bishop e6, and now knight e4. Kicks back the queen and hits the second beautiful outpost. So white is a bit better in this position. But Pragg, to his credit, shows great ability here to just nudge with the pieces, hold steady, not create fatal weaknesses. Now h3 played and a5 from Pragg. Gains a bit of space. a3 in response. Nice pawn structure. You've got them on dark squares. Gives this bishop plenty of room to maneuver around. b6 drives back the knight. And now the bishop hops back out to e6. Pragg has now conceded a weakness here. We'll see white try and gang up on that one, but he's just about got enough to defend, especially with this knight on e7 instead of f6. So we see knight g3 played, opening up the rook down the e-file, looking at this square here, maybe jumping here later to offer checkmating ideas with the queen. Now we see rook e8 from Pragg, just trying to keep this one behind the f-pawn. Maybe one day he pushes f6. We see rook c1, eyeing the weakness. Queen d6 comes off that line, and after knight e4, the queen retreating back. Bishop a4 carries on the probe. Bishop d7 covers that pawn, and queen g3. Sneaky move, especially to face him rapid. You're x-raying this queen, which is unprotected. And if you play something natural like king h8, stepping off the file, you've actually just walked into a tactic with knight d6. If queen takes, we've got this discovered check and you win the queen. And if you don't take, then the rook's about to drop. If you move it, well, now you take here with check, supported by the knight. You know, no good. So don't sidestep with the king. Rook c8. Pragg alert to the tactics. Covers his queen. Now we see the queen just nudging back to f3. f6 now. Drives away this knight, which captures the bishop. Queen takes back. Still Pragg is just holding on to this pawn. And now here, white just goes slightly wrong with the plan. Knight g3 is played, spinning around to the king side. But knight c3 was better. Pressure this piece, open the e-file, prepare to double, nudge back the bishop to one of these squares, and try and play on the light square complex, create more problems for black. That was the way to go. But knight g3 played, king h8, knight h5, queen d6. Now mate is threatened, but Pragg parries with pawn g6. This whole thing looks really loose, but look how Pragg starts to consolidate. Knight g3 back, h5, the queen goes, king g7, knight e4, the queen moves once again, offers an exchange. You don't want to go in for this. The problem, once again, is the IQP. Better for black, who can gang up on that pawn, but it's roughly level. But we didn't see captures, queen d3. Pragg brings this rook to the centre, rook cd1, adds some support, knight f5, Pragg's knight springing to life. That one's been stuck there since the first time it developed, and now it not only pressures this pawn here, but starts to look for tactical tricks, as we'll see. So g3 drives back the queen. Queen c7, queen f3 now played, and after rook e8, the king now goes to the wrong square. So a better move here for white was pawn h4 to stop this annoying advance, breaking up the dark squares. Also bishop b3, another candidate move, but king g2 played, and actually you're stepping into knight check possibilities. Rook e7 from Pragg. And now this is the moment where the position is level, but within two moves, you've got a former super GM lost. So what you should do here as white is knight c3, immediately challenge that e-file. But what we see instead is queen d3. Both players very low on time on this point, by the way. This is where the youngsters just really come into their own. And now h4 is breaking up the pawns, and it's a horrible move to face with no time on the clock. If you go g4, you've just critically weakened that square, your queen is dropping, and if you ignore the threat, which is the best thing to do, you know, the computer says rook d2, top move, well, black can start cranking open the position, look at the weakness of this square, and there's no knockout blow, but it's about -3 now. Black 3 pawns ahead, the computer says. even though the position's level, because there's huge attacking ideas. You can even start swinging to the h-file now, pressuring this one, queen d7, horrible tricky knights to contend with, down on time. So we see knight c3 played in the game. That was the move that Najer goes with to try and defend, but there's a knockout blow here, which of course Pragg finds. Can you find the move that finishes the game? It forced resignation. Beautiful tactic available to black. So the move played was knight check on e3, and it's an absolutely devastating blow. You're about to win an exchange. Now the pawn captured in the game. What if the rook captures here? Well, again, the knight can take. Sorry, I thought I had this line ready to go, but it's not. Again, the knight can take. And if the pawn takes, well, you've got this same problem of the queen crashing through here with decisive effect against the king. Now, I won't keep going on this line because I'm going to show you a different line. In the game, we saw captures with the pawn, and now similar thing, resignation came here, because if the queen crashes through, the king goes away. Well, here's a sample of how the game could finish. So the king stepping away, and queen f2 is brutal. There's different finishing moves, but there's a threat now of knight g3, check and mate. And parrying that one, you know, the computer wants to give up the queen here. Say you do something like, what was the move I was looking at? Maybe rook g1 to cover that threat. Now you can still go knight g3, and after captures, pawn captures, not only are you threatening this checkmate, but you've got the rook swinging here with deadly effect. So this was the final position. Here, Evgeny Najer resigned. Pragg took the win. I hope you enjoyed this game. To see another incredible game from Pragg, check out the video on screen, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks very much for watching.